Heroes of the City of Man, pages 134 to 144. Here we go. The Final Feast, books 22 to 24. As noted above, the last three books of the Iliad correspond chiastically, in reverse order, to the first three books. Book 22 describes a duel of Hector and Achilles, the duel that resolves the unfinished duel of Paris and Menelaus in Book 3. Book 3, moreover, gave us a first glimpse of Hector, while in Book 22, we see him alive for the last time. Hector stands outside the city walls, shackled fast by his deadly fate, while Priam and Hecuba urge him to run to safety. Fated he may be, but Hector is having doubts about staying outside the walls. Like Achilles, he nurses his quenchless fury. Like Achilles, he faces a heroic choice between a shameful but long life or a short and glorious death. If I slip inside the gates and walls, Polydamas will be the first to heap disgrace on me. I would die of shame to face the men of Troy and the Trojan women trailing their long robes, so now better far be for me to stand up to Achilles, kill him, come home alive, or die at his hands in glory out before the walls. Even now, however, he considers the possibility of laying down his weapons and trying to negotiate a deal. I could promise to give back Helen, yes, and all her treasures with her. We know from the previous books that Achilles is not in a conciliatory mood, and Hector knows it too. He'll show no mercy, no respect for me, my rights. He'll cut me down straight off, stripped of defenses like a woman once I have loosed the armor off my body. He expects Achilles to treat him the way Agamemnon has treated Achilles. In spite of this, he decides in favor of glory and immortality by fighting Achilles. There is no glory in the city, it is only on the field and in the camp. Achilles and Hector make precisely the same choice. Yet Hector's heroic choice has dimensions lacking in Achilles. He must not only choose between shame and glory, but he must choose between the city and the field, between joining his family and fellow citizens behind the walls, or remaining outside in the vain hope of defeating Achilles. He must choose between the Ados of being considered a coward and the Ados that would lead him to save himself and protect his people. When Hector chooses to fight, he is thinking like a hero, but he is also motivated by a love for Troy and a sense of responsibility for her protection, a patriotic sentiment that we find in none of the Greeks. As he fights Achilles, he is thinking of the benefit for his city if Achilles were killed. How much lighter the war would be for the Trojans then if you, their greatest scourge, were dead and gone. The irony of the situation is like that of the scene in Book 6 with Andromache. Hector, the city's protector, fights to save his wife and city, but to do that he must leave them. As James Redfield puts it, his act of defense requires a kind of betrayal. Achilles has no such motive. As the Trojans stream back behind the safety of the city walls, Achilles' rage turns against Apollo. Now you've robbed me of great glory, save their lives with all your deathless ease. He warns the watching Greeks not to throw a spear at Hector, fearing that someone might snatch the glory Achilles came in second. Glory and fury are inextricably mixed in Achilles' heroic temperament. When Hector flees from Achilles, it is the latter's fury that drives him on as both men race for the life of Hector, breaker of horses. When Hector stops running and faces Achilles, he suggests they swear a pact. I will never mutilate you, merciless as you are, if Zeus allows me to last it out and tear your life away. But once I've stripped your glorious armor, Achilles, I will give your body back to your loyal comrades. Swear you'll do the same. These are the same terms that Hector demanded in his duel with Ajax, but Achilles' rage permits no oath. There are no binding oaths between men and lions. Wolves and lambs can enjoy no meeting of the minds. They are all bent on hating each other to the death. When Achilles delivers a fatal blow with a spear, Hector again begs at Achilles to treat his body with respect and accept the ransom that Priam will offer for his return. Achilles is adamant that he will shame your corpse while Achaeans bury my dear friend in glory. Again his fury rises to terrifying heights. Beg no more, you fawning dog, begging me by my parents. Would to God my rage, my fury would drive me now to hack your flesh away and eat you raw. Such agonies you have caused me. Ransom? The dogs and birds will rend you blood and bone. Like the dogs and birds, Achilles feasts only slaughter and the choking groans of dying men. Intent on bringing shame to Hector, he drags his body behind his chariot back to the Greek camp, his dark hair swirling around that head so handsome once, all tumbled low in the dust. Hair, a natural crown, is associated with glory in ancient literature, but now Hector's glory lies in the dust. Within the city, Hecuba hears that Troy's glory has been laid in the dust and begins to tear her own hair, while Priam is mad to go rushing out the Dardan gates after his son's killer. They are not only fearful for the future of Troy, but see that Troy has lost its greatest glory. When Andromache sees Achilles dragging Hector away, she faints, flinging off her glittering headdress, her crown of glory a gift of Aphrodite. Naturally, her concern is for her young son, who will grow to manhood without a father to protect him from thieves and strangers. Hector's shame, the end of his glory, goes on from generation to generation. Significantly, she describes both her son's and her husband's humiliation using the image of food. While Astyanax once would only eat the marrow, the richest cuts of lamb, now he would be driven from the banquet. And all this because Hector lies among the Greek ships while glistening worms will wriggle through your flesh once the dogs have had their fill of your naked corpse. As Achilles' hour of glory brings shame to Hector, so Achilles' feast of slaughter robs food from Andromache's table. Troy is filled with grief, and so is a Greek war camp, though their grief is now expressed in a more dignified and less desperate way. Patroclus lies in a state on his funeral pyre, while all the Greeks drive their chariots round, giving the solemn honors owed the dead. As part of the funeral arrangements, Achilles sets out a feast and leads in a chant of mourning. The Greeks arm and ride past on their chariots, each casting his hair on the funeral pyre, sacrificing their own glory to honor the glorious dead. Achilles himself has been growing a lock of hair for the river god Spercheius, but he offers it instead on Patroclus's pyre. He had vowed to offer his lock and 50 rams when he returned to his home, but with the death of Patroclus and now Hector, he knows he will never return to fulfill that vow. Sacrifices are heaped up on Patroclus, along with jars of honey and oil, 4 stallions, 2 of Patroclus's favorite dogs, and a dozen young Trojans. As Homer says, Achilles' mighty heart was erupting now with slaughter. The funeral is a religious rite, but for Achilles it seems more like a continuation of the battle. And not only for Achilles, he arranges funeral games for the Greeks, a chariot race, boxing, wrestling, a running race, a duel in full armor, and archery. That these games are infused with the spirit of war is clearest from the chariot race. As Diomedes closes in on Eumelus and is ready to pass him, Apollo suddenly rages at Diomedes, whose eyes fill with tears of rage as he watches Eumelus pull ahead. Menelaus curses Antilochus as they race to beat one another to a narrow path of the track. "No one alive more treacherous than you. Away with you, madman!" When Idomeneus announces that Diomedes is going to win, little Ajax tells him to stop blustering, you foul-mouthed. Idomeneus responds in kind, calling Ajax stupid, stubborn, bullneck, and betting him that Diomedes is in the lead, and the two nearly come to blows. The ground rules for the duel are little different from the rules of battle. The soldier who gets in first and cuts a rival's flesh, who pierces armor to draw blood and reaches entrails, is the winner. Like the battle, the games are opportunities to achieve glory, including expensive prizes, animals, tripods, a silver bowl, gold, iron, and weapons. Warriors receive plunder in their games as in their battles, but their main goal is to show their superiority in warlike games. Epius, a boxing champion, sums up the attitude in words that remind us of Muhammad Ali. "I am the greatest." The parallel between war and games is suggested when Achilles calls off the wrestling match between Ajax and Odysseus, both of whom were severely wounded not long ago. Achilles is a healer. With the words, "No more struggling, don't kill yourselves in sport," he almost exactly repeats the words of the herald Idaeus, who calls off the duel between Hector and Ajax by saying, "Don't kill yourselves in combat." Even the rewards are similar in both cases. Achilles tells Odysseus and Ajax that victory goes to both, share the prizes, while Idaeus tells Ajax and Hector that they are equal in glory and the love of the gods. "Zeus, who marshals a storm cloud, loves both of you. You're both great fighters, we all know that full well." In the heroic world, battles are games, dangerous and deadly, but games nonetheless. Games, conversely, are battles. But in the midst of this playful war, something has come over Achilles. He is not the same man who was feasting on gore and blood in the previous books. He seems finally to have sworn off rage, having received his fill of slaughter and choking groans. Little Ajax and Idomeneus nearly come to blows, Achilles intervenes to calm them down. Is this the same Achilles who has been nursing a grudge against Agamemnon throughout the whole epic? And there is more. Out of pity, he proposes to give Eumelus second prize, a mare, but the real second-place driver, Antilochus, objects. He suggests that Achilles give Eumelus another prize, who demands to be given his prize, threatening to fight anyone who tries to take the mare from him. Achilles relents and lets Antilochus keep his mare. Pity from Achilles? Can the one who is relentless as death relent? Whatever has happened to Achilles has happened to others of the Greeks as well. When the mare has been given to Antilochus, Menelaus springs forward to accuse Antilochus of cheating in the race. Antilochus, who has only just threatened to fight off anyone who tries to seize his mare, backs down. Lord Menelaus, you're my senior. You're the greater man. I'll give you this mare I won of my own accord. If only Paris had given up his mare. If only Agamemnon had given up Chryseis without demanding compensation. If only Achilles had given up his, admitting Agamemnon's superiority, the slaughter of the Trojan War would have been avoided entirely. Antilochus provides a moral barometer for the main characters of the epic, and shows them up to be stubborn, senseless. The generous, just, pitiable Achilles of the funeral games has again disappeared at the beginning of Book 24. While the gods feud about the body of Hector, Achilles is still mourning and fasting, still eating your heart out here in tears and torment, still full of heartsick fury. Yet though Achilles intends to defile Hector's body and leave it for the dogs, Apollo intervenes to preserve it. The pro-Greek gods resist him, but he reminds them of Hector's faithfulness in offering thighs of oxen and flawless, full-grown goats, and rebukes him for favoring Achilles, a man without a shred of decency in his heart, who has no shame. That description, no shame, strikes several notes at once. We recall that this is the same description given to the unheroic Paris. Achilles' lack of shame, his lack of concern for the reproaches of his fellows, led to the death of many Greeks, including his beloved Patroclus. But in the aftermath of his magnificent Aristeia, another dimension emerges. Achilles has no shame because he is filled to the brim with glory. Zeus accepts Apollo's arguments, decreeing that Achilles must receive a ransom from King Priam. Achilles must give Hector's body back. He sends Thetis to give instructions to receive Priam and Hermes to conduct him to Achilles' tent. Simultaneously, he sends Iris to tell Priam that Achilles will accept him, though he must bear gifts to Achilles, gifts to melt his rage. Here again we see the contrast of rage, war, and gifts. Gifts are the means of relation in times of truce and peace. Gifts bind men together in pacts. But we've already seen that Achilles refuses pacts and gifts. Agamemnon has tried this before, but in the spite of the gifts, Achilles' rage burned as hotly as ever. We are not as sure as Iris is that Achilles is no madman, no reckless fool, not the one to defy the gods' commands. Whoever begs for mercy he will spare with all the kindness in his heart. Hecuba's assessment seems more accurate. If he gets you in his clutches, sets his eyes on you, that savage, treacherous man, he'll show no mercy, no respect for your rights. She expects him to treat Priam the way Agamemnon has treated Achilles, and she suggests that the only fitting vengeance is to sink my teeth into his liver, eat him raw. Hecuba wishes to be a female Achilles, sharing his savage diet. Spurred by the gods, and by the reassuring omen of the eagle, Priam makes his way to Achilles, bearing a rich ransom of robes, cloaks, blankets, golds, tripods, cauldrons, and a cup. Guided by Hermes, he gets through the Greek line and finds Achilles at his table, having just finished his feast. This setting is significant. Achilles has not eaten during the 12 days since the death of Patroclus. He is fed only on slaughter and rage. Now his hunger for slaughter is satisfied, and he is returning to food, to the joy, fellowship, and satisfaction of ordinary bread, wine, and meat. Their meeting is like something from a dream described in lovely poetry. The majestic king of Troy slipped past the rest, and kneeling down beside Achilles, clasped his knees, and kissed his hands, whose terrible man-killing hands that had slaughtered Priam's many sons in battle. Awesome as when the grip of madness seizes one, who murders a man in his own fatherland and flees abroad to foreign shores, to a wealthy noble host, and a sense of marvel runs through all who see him. So Achilles marveled, beholding majestic Priam. This is one of many Homeric similes that is appropriately inappropriate. Achilles is marveling like a man who, having committed a murder, flees his homeland and finds refuge in a foreign land. But Achilles, not Priam, is acting as host here. Yet on another level, the simile is apt, since Achilles has killed a man and he now holds the hand of the host whose land he has invaded. Priam introduces himself by reminding Achilles of his own father, and he begs for mercy. Achilles is overcome with grief at the thought of his father, and the two weep together, bound together in sadness and loss. Priam weeping for Hector and Achilles for his father and Patroclus. For a moment at least, Achilles' pity extends beyond himself and his immediate circle, as he, apparent for the first time, sees the war from Priam's perspective. Poor man, how much you've borne pain to break the spirit. Yet he counsels Priam to exercise a kind of stoic calm and explain human life in terms of theories, the theory of the jars. There are two great jars that stand on the floor of Zeus's halls, and hold his gifts, our miseries one, the other blessings. When Zeus, who loves the lightning, mixes gifts for a man, now he meets with misfortune, now good times in turn. This has a superficial resemblance to the Christian idea of providence, but it is really very different. According to Achilles' theory, Zeus distributes miseries and blessings arbitrarily. For the Christian, though, we cannot always see the reasons for God's dealings. We can be sure that he has his reasons, and they are just. Moreover, there is no promise of undiluted blessings in Achilles' universe. The Christian suffers now, but is promised to glory beyond imagining, and therefore lives in hope. Achilles suffers now and then dies, and therefore lives in despair. The best one can do is act like a stoic, accepting with calmness whatever comes along. Achilles treats Priam with dignity and sympathy, and we almost like him, but the rage is only just beneath the surface. When Priam asks for Hector's body and urges Achilles to return to your own native land safe and sound, he cannot know that Achilles' fate is already sealed, that he will never return home. But the mention of this possibility brings a dark glance and a warning from Achilles. No more, old man, don't tempt my wrath, not now. Don't anger me now, don't stir my raging heart still more. Priam is terrified, but even in his rage, Achilles has become more cautious. He tells his servants to prepare Hector's body away from Priam's sight, fearing that, overwhelmed by the sight of Hector, wild with grief, Priam might let his anger flare and Achilles might fly into fresh rage himself, and violate the laws of hospitality. He does not want to be a Paris all over again. Achilles and Priam agree to the terms of Hector's funeral. Achilles will make sure that the Greeks refrain from fighting for 12 days, the same period during which Hector's body was defiled, and the same period as the funeral of Patroclus. Then they seal their pact with a meal together. As Achilles fasted during the time since Patroclus' death, so Priam has fasted and remained sleepless during the 12 days since the death of Hector. After eating with Achilles, he sleeps in the Greek camp, a sign of his trust in the word of Achilles. Achilles' feast of blood and slaughter is ended by sharing a common table with his opponent's father. The shared feast of Achilles and Priam would have been a wonderful ending, but the epic goes on and closes instead with the return of Hector's body to the city, where Andromache, Hecuba, and Helen mourn in turn. Andromache mourns for the future of her son. I cannot think he will ever come to manhood. Long before that, the city will be sacked, plundered top to bottom, because you are dead, her great guardian, you who always defended Troy, who kept her loyal wives and helpless children safe, all who will soon be carried off in the hollow ships, and I with them. Priam organizes a funeral, which ends with a splendid funeral feast in Hector's honor, held in the house of Priam, king by will of Zeus. It is this feast, rather than the feast of reconciliation, that closes the epic. And for Homer, this is the only possible ending. A funeral feast is not a feast of celebration, but of resignation. In the heroic world, the world of continual war of glory-seeking deeds, no reconciliation, no peace, no feast can possibly be permanent. No battle is raging at the end of the epic, but the final lines are haunted, as the Trojans themselves are by the expectation of the 12th day, the day when the battle will resume, when the rage of Achilles, Ajax, Menelaus, and Agamemnon will be rekindled, and the fire of rekindled rage will consume Troy. There are beauties in the Iliad and even an occasional flash of genuine nobility, but the world it depicts is a world that knows nothing of the promise of a prince of peace, whose government and peace have no end, who invites the nations to an eternal banquet that will celebrate a final and total victory in a world without pain, tears, or death. This is the unimagined promise that fits the Iliad by its absence.